We're talking with Scott Shepard from the Free Enterprise Project about why American companies have gone so woke. And you can trace it back to a letter that Larry Fink wrote several years ago, where he basically put people on notice that we're not just looking out for the best return for shareholders, we're going to look at these other factors, and they're important because in the long run, I think they'll get the best return for shareholders, or something like that, right? Scott, do you remember that letter?
Yes, I remember that letter, and I remember the concomitant action by the Business Roundtable, which is just a luncheon club for CEOs. It doesn't have any authority or power, and frankly, these CEOs can pay for their own dang lunches. But they got together under Jamie Dimon's leadership and said, oh, well, we're going to redefine the purpose of an American corporation. It's no longer, as it is under law and still is, shareholder value. Instead, now it's stakeholder capitalism, where we're gonna do good for all stakeholders by various moves. Well, no, of course, not all of any group agrees about anything. And so it was a lie from the start that stakeholder capitalism was going to work. And then with Larry Fink's follow-up letter to CEOs, a lot of these CEOs who supported the move from to stakeholder capitalism, they thought, oh, well, I can sock puppet some stakeholders and get to infuse a little of my own personal politics into my company. Instead, what they discovered is, oh, no, this was an opportunity for Jamie Dimon at a too-big-to-fail bank and Brian Moynihan at Bank of America and Larry Fink at BlackRock to put you in a vice. And with that letter, what Larry was telling him is, aha, the trap is now sprung. You're going to do not your personal policy preferences, but my personal policy preferences and Brian Moynihan's personal policy preferences, and you sure are going to like it, regardless of what it does to your share price. And so they get to be the masters. The CEOs, if anybody's on the line, it's the CEOs and their subordinates, but they have to take partisan and non-fiduciary marching orders from these self-appointed masters of the universe.
Well, and one of the ways they've done it is they've kind of a Sue and Settle approach. They've used outside groups they've got these shareholder resolutions, and then they take the votes that belong to everybody else, but they use the votes themselves and vote their interests on those. To explain the shareholder proposal process.
Yeah. So shareholder proposals have always been an option, but about 30 years, nobody noticed. About 30 years ago, the left noticed. There's a giant As You Sow coalition it's their 30th anniversary. And they started using these proposals to push corporations to the left. And for a long time, the corporations more or less ignored them, recognizing that that moving in a partisan direction was certainly going to upset lots of customers and more customers than it was going to draw in. But then, as you say, after the 2008 downturn, Larry Fink and other investment house magnates decided that they were going to start voting in favor of left-wing shareholder proposals. And as you pointed out, that's using other people's money for their personal policy preferences, and it's always to the left. And so once that started, corporations had to start paying heed to these left-wing shareholder proponents and giving in to them to get the shareholder proposals off the ballot or just in off-season negotiations. Now, we, for many years, the Free Enterprise Project of the National Center for Public Policy Research, we were pretty much the only right-of-center shareholder proponents. And we've got some allies now. People have really understood on our side that we can't just let corporate executives do anything they want and call it capitalism. But we're still behind the eight ball. And because Larry Fink and the other controllers of capital only vote for left-wing propositions, we've had a bit of a struggle to get corporations to treat us with the same respect they treat the left-wing proponents, and also to get the SEC, because the SEC discriminates against right-of-center proposals. But we're suing them, and we think we're suing the SEC. We think that's going to be effective, and we're looking to sue some companies to break their their breaches of fiduciary duties. So it's possible it's looking way up.